Let's work now on Fort Wayne file. So I'm going to open it up. Once you open it, it tells you that there is one or more circular references where a formula refers to its own cell, either directly or indirectly. So let's see what the problem is. I'm going to push OK, and I still see here circular reference. Okay, now for the time being, I'm going to click in B3, and I'm wondering where this cell is being used. Maybe it's being used in a formula. So then we go to formulas, and I'm going to trace dependent. So dependent would be if it's used in a formula. And it looks like it's being used here, and you can see that's the sum, and also it's being used right there in this sum. If I want to see, for example, cell E3, which are the precedents, so let me remove the arrows for the moment, and let me see this E3 trace precedent. So the precedents would be the constituent cells, so the cells that are in the formula. And you can see these three cells. Of course, you can just double click and see it here, but sometimes you have more complex formulas. So trace precedence and dependence will help you see the connections and spot maybe errors quickly. Let's remove the errors now. Now let's actually move on to quarter number 2. And once you do that, it actually tells you circular reference in E11. So let's take a look at E11 and let's see what the problem is. It says sum B11, E11. Now you are in E11. So it doesn't make sense to add up the cells you are in. So then we need to remove that E11. So let's stop at D11. Okay? So we only need to take the monthly totals, April, May, and June. Now let's push enter. And now this is fixed. And then you see the error disappear. But you can also see this green triangle in the upper corner. And it tells us that the formula in a range that has additional numbers adjacent to it. So let's double click and see what's wrong. You see how this one only takes May and June? So let's be sure we also take April and push enter. Let's move on to quarter 3. Everything looks fine. Quarter 4 and then yearly totals. Now in yearly totals, we'd like to see athletic apparel over here. We'd like to see what happens if we change the value in D3 in quarter 4. So how will these numbers change over here? And we can go to the formulas and we can use what's called a watch window. And in this watch window, I want to add exactly those cells to watch. So let's push add and let's make it bigger so we can see. And it tells us here, so the name of the file, and then the name of the sheet, and then we see the cell reference, the value, and also the formula. So let's move on now to quarter 4. And in D3, you want to put another number. So let's take a look what happens. We want to put 175, 0, 0, 0. Let's see what actually happens. So if you go back to yearly totals to see again what E3, F3 are, so that would be quarter 4, E3, and F3 would be the totals. And let's see if these numbers actually changed. I'm going to undo, and you can see here 355 and 1306. And if I redo, you can see how they actually changed. Let's move on to quarter 4, and I'm going to close this watch window. And over here, we want to create what's called the validation rule. So for exercise equipment, we try to have the user input maximum 500,000. How can we do that? So we can select all these numbers and we can go to the data tab where we have something called data validation. So let's choose it. And over here we need to allow a decimal because that's the revenue, so it can have decimal places also, cents. And we like to have a maximum, so should be less than or equal to, and the maximum number can be 500,000. Now what happens if someone enters something bigger than 500,000. We can put over here an input message for what they can actually see when they enter the data. So that would be, I'm going to type sales data, and for the input message, I'm going to type enter the sales amount for the respective month. And then let's click on the error alert. We don't want to stop them, so they can still enter the number, but we want to warn them. So let's choose warning. So let's put a title over here. I'm going to put potentially invalid data. And for the error message, I'm going to paste the projected maximum is 500,000. However, if actual sales are higher, enter the actual value. So we still allow them to enter a higher value if is correct. So let's see what happens if we actually enter a bigger value. So first of all, you can see here, once you try to type something just by selecting it, it tells you, gives you information. So let's type here 600,000, which is bigger than 500,000, and see what we get. You see how we name the warning message, potentially invalid data, and we have over here the information. Do you want to continue? So you can say yes, I want to continue, and that will keep the number. And let's also go to data validation. We want to circle invalid data. So that shows us where we have invalid data. Probably you don't want to have this one validated. I did it by mistake. Let's try to clear the data validation from this particular cell. I select it, and then I go to data validation, and I can clear all and push OK. So this cleared the data validation for that cell, but not for these ones.